So actually a key theme of this particular talk is waking up, waking up with a sense of purpose. How do we wake up every day of our life with a sense of purpose, that there's a reason for me being here today? It may not be immediately obvious that we have a purpose, or like I have a purpose, you have a purpose. It's very easy, even if we think we have a purpose one day, the next day to forget about it. And I think the heart of the story of the Buddha's enlightenment is that we each have a reason for being alive right here, right now. And we need to uncover that, and we need to live by it clearly every day of our life. What else? Why else are we here? Why else are we here? We need to uncover our life's purpose and carry that out. And that's going to look different for each of us. There's not like a cookie cutter thing that we're supposed to do. But the Buddha, the story of the Buddha gives us some clues on as to how to live this out. How do we live out this life of purpose? So let's look at the story of the Buddha. Actually, I'm just going to give you a short snippet of it. Shakyamuni Buddha, this is from the Transmission of Light, the Denko Roku by Keizan Joki. Shakyamuni Buddha realized enlightenment on seeing the morning star. Right? He realized enlightenment on seeing the morning star. Let's not forget, the Buddha was not sitting in meditation in a room. He was not inside. He was outside. He was sitting under a tree. How many of you have meditated under a tree before? Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. You should do it often. That's why sometimes when we do retreats at Nebraska, I emphasize, let's go outside. Let's go outside and sit. The Buddha didn't attain enlightenment sitting inside. He sat on a grass mat. He sat with bugs crawling on his skin. He could feel the breeze on his skin. He could see the forest around him. And he attained enlightenment upon seeing a star in the sky, actually probably a planet, probably Venus or maybe Jupiter. Those are the bright planets. So when we, and Benji, I need some water. So we got to keep that in mind. Where is enlightenment found? It's found in relationship. It's found in relationship with others. The Buddha didn't do this all by himself. He was sitting under a tree. He was in a forest. He practiced with several teachers too. He had his own sangha. The Buddha's enlightenment took place inside of relationship. He says, the first thing he says upon his awakening, I and all beings on earth together attain enlightenment at the same time. That's a profound thing to say. It wasn't about him himself, a particular state of mind. It wasn't about some special state of mind. He says, I and all beings together attain enlightenment at the same time. That means you. That means you. It says here, do not see Shakyamuni, Keizan writes, do not see Shakyamuni Buddha outside of all beings on earth. Right? Do not see Shakyamuni Buddha outside of all beings on earth. Don't. The Buddha is not some special image found on an altar. Yeah, we need the altar. We need to see the Buddha image, but that is not where the Buddha can only be found. All right. So, getting to this place of purpose and waking up, and then the Buddha taught for the next 49 years. He spoke. He gave teachings for the next 49 years to over 360 assemblies. The story says. Right? There must have been some deep mission inside of the Buddha that gave him the energy to do that. Must have been. He must have seen a really strong sense of purpose. And that's a powerful message for us, because the Buddha was a human being just like you and me. He wasn't some god. He wasn't some celestial being coming out of the sky. He was a normal human being. Right? He had the causes and conditions to wake up in his lifetime, and he did it. And so do you. Right? So here's the thing that I think a lot of us get stuck. We see enlightenment as some kind of a special state that's outside of our life. We don't make the connection between enlightenment and our job, or our family, or our friends, our diet, exercise. We don't make a connection between enlightenment and exercise, or chanting sutras, or even doing zazen. Maybe we don't make a connection between enlightenment and gardening, or between enlightenment and financial loss. Or from transitioning from a job. Or enlightenment and those beings outside of our immediate family. Or poor health. We don't make the connection between enlightenment and poor health. Now, so there's all these things that we say, okay, this is on this side is enlightenment, this side is delusion, and I'm going to try to go over there for enlightenment and stay away from this side, this delusive side. I get over there. How do I do that as quickly as possible? And then if I get on this track, this train, this method is going to take me over there. This is not Zen, right? There's not a method. There's not a method that we use to get over from delusion to enlightenment. All right. Otherwise, we're just fooling people. We're just fooling people if we think we can devise some special method. I'm going to give you some special method to wake up. That's not how it works. You have everything you need to move forward. And I just want to encourage that. That's all I want to do. I want to encourage that you can wake up. That's what the story of the Buddha is saying, is that you have the potential to do this too. Do not doubt yourself 1 second. All right? Never, ever doubt yourself for 1 second. I don't care what your past has been, what you have done in the past that has been terrible, that has been hurtful. You can let go of all that stuff any second and strive. Now, this moment is the moment that counts. This moment, the past doesn't, the past creates right now, but right now creates the future. So if you want to change, you can do that right this second. Right this second is an opportunity to change. You don't have to wait for some special conditions to be present. You don't have to become a monk to attain enlightenment. It's right here, right now, in the present moment. If you want to be a monk, now talk to me about that. And we can see about it, but you don't have to be, right? These conditions for your life right now are ripe for enlightenment, and you're doing the world a service by seeing that in your own life. And so I want to encourage each of you to wake up to your situation as it is, not think that something has to change on the external side in order for you to fully flourish. You know what you need to do. And the Zen Center is here to support you. I'm here to support you, and I love to talk to you about it. You know, if you need, sometimes we need clarity. Sometimes we need clarity as to how do I actually do that? And that's why in the Zen Center, we have all kinds of forms that help us to clarify how do we actually live this out. And it's by the little things. It's really the little things. We start with the small things. The smallest thing can be the biggest thing, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you that it comes down to one thing: clean up after yourself. It's going to make the world a better place. Clean up after yourself. When you make a mess, clean it up. That's it. That's the beginning and end of our life. We make a mess and then we clean up after ourselves. That's what a monk went, a newly ordained monk, just went, first day at the monastery, he had his breakfast. He went to the master for instruction. He said, "What should I do now?" The master said, "Did you wash your bowls?" "No." "Well, go wash them." Upon hearing this, the monk was enlightened. Right? Washing the bowls. That's the front and end of practice. What messes have we left uncleaned? Go clean those up. Whatever it is. I mean, washing the dish is a symbol. It's a symbol for something else in your life. Or it could literally be that you need to wash your dishes. Did you wash your dishes after you ate breakfast? Or did you let somebody else wash them? Or did you just let them sit in the sink? Right? So, I mean, come on, let's be honest with ourselves. I'm not here to shame anybody for not washing their dishes this morning. But just to bring forward, bring the light. You've got in your midst what you need to do. My teacher would say, if you want to know where your treasure is, you've got to roll up your sleeves and take off the lid of the trash can and dig into the trash. That's where you're going to find your enlightenment. It's not outside of that. Find it in your delusion. Find it in your deluded self. Yesterday, we talked about digging into delusion as part of our practice. I'm still waiting for that water, Benji. All right. So here's the other thing is that we never ever stop improving. Never ever stop improving ourselves. There's things that we can do to change, and we should do them. If there's something that you can do to change, to make your life better, more healthy, then you should do it. That's a kind of signature of Zen culture, is constant refinement of character. And that can look a lot of different ways. And if you want, some thoughts on how that might look for you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. But never give up on your purpose, regardless of what setbacks might have for you in life. I desired so strongly to be at Nebraska Zen Center this weekend, and the universe had another plan for me. And I was very upset about it. But I can't let that hold me up. It happens. You're gonna have there's gonna be upsets. There's gonna be things that get in the way of your goals, and we cannot let that get us down. All right, we keep going, and the main thing is that we practice the precepts. All right, you guys, some of you are studying the precepts formally. That's great. Even if you're not studying them formally, we should know what they are and strive to live by them as best we can. But that's for a separate Dharma talk. All right, so the Buddha, he says, and now here's the point I want to start making, and that is of isolation. I think this is one of the biggest barriers to practice in our society, this sense of profound isolation and loneliness that pervades modern American society, pervades it across everybody. It's like our society is set up for us to be alone and separate from each other. Buddha says upon awakening, I and all beings together attain the great way. I and all beings together. And right from the start, immediately, he's aware that he's not separate. He's not alone, ever. He's never, ever alone, right? This is a total contradiction, 180-degree turn from where our society is headed right now, or just the feel of the society, this loneliness that pervades us. There's a Japanese saying, toku ko narazu. Toku ko narazu means virtue doesn't happen alone. Virtue doesn't happen alone. In other words, we can't do good all by ourselves. It takes everybody supporting us that we do good. It takes the recognition that everybody is supporting us for us to do good, right? We're not just inherently good. We're only good because everybody is supporting us. And we recognize that when we think we're alone, that's when we start doing bad things. Think about it. Think about your own life. When you start screwing up, when you start screwing up, it's because you think you're separate from others. That's not the case ever. It's just because we think we're separated. In reality, we're never ever separate. We're just we're mentally, the ego, the brain here says, oh, I'm somehow different. I'm somehow separate from those people over there. They don't love me. They don't care for me. I'm alone. I'm all by myself. And then we start doing stupid things. All right. So, aloneness, that aloneness separates us from our purpose. Right? There's a separate when we're feeling isolated, we are also isolating ourselves from our real sense of purpose. Another way to say this is when you're living with purpose, you're never alone. A purpose-driven life is never a life isolated from other beings. All right. Yet we live in a society where isolation and loneliness is at an all-time high. Profound levels of anxiety and profound levels of depression exist. We know people, we ourselves succumb to, myself included, anxiety, depression, maybe not on a clinical level, but there is some vestiges of that in us, each of us. And we've got to be wary of it and learn ways to skillfully work with these kinds of anxieties. Now, recently, I don't know if you saw this, let me hold on. So I need a drink. Sarah, do you mind giving me a cup of water, please? Thanks. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the U.S. Surgeon General recently put out a warning stating that the levels of anxiety and depression are much higher. Thank you. Thank you, Angie.
Welcome.
Are much higher. Levels of anxiety and depression are much higher for those teenagers. I think it's between ages 12 and 15, something like that, that watch social media, that engage with social media more than 3 hours a day. And the average usage of social media in that age group is 3.5 hours a day. So when we're looking at our youth, when we're seeing our children, our teenagers, we're seeing kids that are probably very highly anxious and depressed because they're on social media seeing how great things are for somebody else's life, and they're making these comparisons that are just not realistic for themselves. And we do that also. I mean, even if you're an adult, the Surgeon General was looking at that particular age group. But don't fool yourself. I mean, if you're on social media a lot, you're at risk for increased levels of anxiety and depression. I'm not suggesting that we cease social media, but we have to learn to use this tool more wisely. So the Buddha says, I and all beings together, right? His enlightenment is not separate from you. He makes us straight. But when you watch social media, it's like somebody else's life is somehow not included. You're not included in their life, right? But the Buddha is very inclusive. He says, everybody, me and you and everybody, all these beings, these trees and mountains, and these other people across the world, they're all a part of this great enlightenment, right? But when we look at social media, we feel differently. We feel like, oh, you know what? They're having a great time out there, and I'm not. I'm not a part of them. Notice that, feel that palpable difference there, right? So, some recommendations is create a tech-free zone in your home, tech-free home in your zone, and do a periodic media fast. That's if you're not sure how to do that, just do sesshin for a few days. But a media fast meaning stop all usage of media for at least a day, 24-hour period. See how it feels. Don't get on Facebook or Snapchat or any of the other ones. And then see how you feel. I've done this with my world religions classes. Have them do a 24-hour media fast, and they really, really appreciate it. They gain so much from it. These are 17-year-old students, and all of them are just locked to their phones. I go into a class to teach about Buddhism, and everybody's on their freaking iPhone. And I got to tell them, turn off your iPhones. It's just it's a level dealing with something I never had to deal with when I was going to school. There was no computers. So I give them this challenge: no media for 24 hours, and I want you to write about it. And they do beautifully. They do beautifully on it, and I can see so many of them express the connection, or they can see then for themselves the connection between their own anxiety and their overconsumption of media. It's really profound to see them become aware of it, and they're more and more people are becoming aware of this, the downside of social media, and making amends in their life. So I just want to share this warning of the Surgeon General with you all. The Surgeon General, you see on cigarette packs, U.S. Surgeon General warning. In the 1960s, I think it was, they didn't have any U.S. Surgeon General warning on the cigarettes. That has made a big difference in people's minds, and now we're having another U.S. Surgeon General warning that the risks of overuse of social media. So take this very seriously. Youth are the ones that will carry us into the future, and if we don't empower them to connect with life around them, then we're descending into a kind of chaos. We need to encourage our youth to develop themselves, to find their strength, internal strength, to not lean on what they're seeing outside of themselves in terms of what their friends or other social media friends are doing. That's not as important as they themselves feeling a sense of connectedness to the world, and that they're okay as they are. So there is a saying in Dogen Zenji, in Gyoji. Gyo is to practice. Gyoji. Dogen says, by the continuous practice of all Buddhas and ancestors. Your practice is actualized, and your great road is opened up. Let me say that again. By the continuous practice of all Buddhas and ancestors, your practice is actualized, and your great road is opened up. All right, we do this with the Buddhas. This is the wonderful thing. We do this practice. We are awakening with the Buddhas. And in the story, the transmission story of the Buddha, it says, old Shakyamuni Buddha is with you all the time. Whatever you are doing, he is conversing and exchanging greetings with you. Isn't that wonderful? I encourage you to read the entire of the transmission of Shakyamuni Buddha when you have a chance, the Denko Roku. My teacher said, practice as though Dogen Zenji were sitting in the room with you behind a Soji screen. Right? Imagine Zen Master Dogen sitting still in the same room as you. That's a good practice. You can experiment with that with yourself. Imagine this teacher being there. Or if you don't resonate with Dogen, think about somebody else who you might want to be in the same room with you. Another teacher. Right? Maybe Thich Nhat Hanh. There is a story, and if you think this is, it's hard to imagine. For some people, it might be hard to think about this, like calling up past teachers into our practice. I think that we can do it, though. And I saw a beautiful example of this in Japan when I was training. Before I ordained as a monk, my teacher set up for me to go to 3 temples. We went to I was ordained in 2004. And I think it was 2002, we went to Japan as a Sangha for Dogen's 750th anniversary. And afterwards, my Sangha all left. They went back to the United States, and my teacher set up some places for me to visit and stay for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. I went to Kappa Dojo, where my teacher trained. I lived there for 3 weeks. I went to Hokkyoji. Went to Hokkyoji and trained there for 2 weeks. And then I went to Hoshinji and did a sesshin there for a week. And I was living there for about 2 weeks. And there was another monk from San Francisco Zen Center that I trained with at Tassajara. And he was training at, I think it's Bukokuji, which was right next to Hoshinji. And I told him I was going to be there, and he knew, and we were looking forward to seeing each other. And my teacher told me about this nun who lived in a kind of a side temple between these two, Hoshinji and Bukokuji. Between these 2 temples, there was a nun that lived in a small little hut between these 2 temples. And so I asked my friend from Tassajara, hey, you want to go check her out and see her? My teacher said, my teacher called in advance. She knows I'm coming. Let's go check her out. So we did. It was an amazing experience. The presence that this woman exuded just blew my mind. Just blew my mind. She had the inside of this temple was it's just a really small space, like maybe 2 rooms. And we had some very nice exchanges. I think we had some tea or something together and a little conversation. She didn't speak very much English, if if any. I don't remember her speaking good English at all. But my friend actually could translate, and I'll never forget. She showed us into the room, one of the rooms, and she had set this low Japanese table, and there were two seats, and each seat had next to it tea, and sweets. And she told us, every day I go into this room and I sit down with my deceased teacher and I drink tea with him. She had it all set up. She would sit down. I mean, she didn't do this for us in that moment, but she had it all set up to do that. She would go down and sit at the table with her teacher, who was already deceased, you know, and have tea with him and give him tea. What a beautiful practice. What a beautiful practice. You can do that. You can do that. We can do that. We can do that with our ancestors. You want to have a conversation with somebody who has passed away. Do it. Do it. Find a way and do it. Have a conversation with them. They're closer than you think. Right? Problem is we think too much, don't we? Buddha says, I and all beings together realize the Buddha way. Remember that you are the Buddha. So I'd like to close. Who's the Buddha? You are the Buddha, right? You are the sage. I'd like to close with this poem. You are the sage you've been looking for. Wake up. Together with all beings, we attain the way. Thank you.
Questions? Oh, question.
I have a comment.
Please.
So I hear what you're saying about, like the news and that. And what I started doing is getting happy news. And ironically, I find that I can see through the BS in the happy news, but not in the scary news. So, dun, 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 is this a magic cure for cancer? Like, oh, crap, this stop. Dun, 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 are we going into hell in a handbasket with the government? And I'm clicking on that right away. But it's the same thing. But I recognize it when it's positive news, but not when it's negative. So I'm really noticing that about myself.
Yeah. We have some part of our brain that latches on to those negative things for survival's sake. And every kind of advertisement and news agency, they know that what sells is negative stuff. That's what we're hardwired for that. And we have to be aware that we're hardwired to receive negative information for survival's sake. Whether it's true or not, though, is something we have to really question. Yeah. All right.
So appreciate you taking the effort to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love you guys. So I wanna be able to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Daishin.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your practice. And everyone here online too, please join us as much as you can. There's the schedule, the same link that you used to get on here today, you can use to to join the session. And the schedule is on the calendar. Where is the schedule? It's on the website as well, but we're doing multiple sittings throughout the day. And I would just encourage you, if you have the time, to come sit with us, right? If you're wondering what to do, wonder no longer. Just come and sit. It's a good practice for us to do. It really opens us up. That's where when we sit upright, right, in a good upright posture and maintain it for a while, we get clear. Zazen helps us to get clear. And we sit with the Buddha, so finding that time to, right, find that intimacy with the Buddha in our own body, in our own physical body, right? Not some specialized body, not something that's in the future body, but this body right now.
You do closing chant?
One brief question, forgive my ignorance, for
Yeah.
tonight and for the evening session tonight and tomorrow. Does that start at 6:30 or 7?
6:30.
Thank you.
Right. All right. Yeah. Please join us. It'd be wonderful to have you, Brandon.